Chapter 18 to 19. As the Marines engaged in a discussion about the conditions of the sea, Pride stood firmly on the deck of their vessel, eagerly anticipating their imminent arrival at the beautiful island of Kosia. As the ship drew closer, the outline of the island of Kosia became more and more distinct, with its numerous towering mountains becoming clearly visible from a distance. Despite its simplicity and typical appearance as a typical island, Pride was unable to fully discern the exact extent of the island, as their ship was approaching from a single angle. As they continued to approach, several docked ships came into view, indicating that they were approaching a bustling port or harbor. It wasn't long before Pride's ship also made its way to shore, docking alongside the other vessels at the port. "Thud, please enjoy your stay on the island," the ship's crew member said, as they oversaw the safe and prompt disembarkation of the passengers to allow for a seamless unloading of the cargo. As Pride stepped off the ship and set foot on the island, they were immediately captivated by the breathtaking view before them. The initial few hundred meters were entirely adorned with lush greenery, with trees and vegetation as far as the eye could see. As Pride journeyed through the lush landscape, a small hill gradually came into view on the horizon. After reaching the top of the hill, they were greeted with a stunning panoramic view of a charming little town nestled in a serene valley below. The architectural style of the houses in the town bore a striking resemblance to the traditional design of Romanian monasteries, evoking a sense of nostalgia and cultural familiarity in Pride's mind. "Ah, now it's all coming back to me," Pride thought. "I remember reading in a forum that Kosia was said to be a replica of Romania, and seeing this town's architecture, I can see why." As Pride continued towards the heart of the town, a few locals came into view, going about their daily business. Despite the island's vast expanse, with its majestic mountains stretching far into the distance, there appeared to be a relatively low population living in the area, at least within the confines of this particular town. It was possible, of course, that there were other settlements on the island that Pride had yet to discover. After some searching, Pride was able to secure a rental shelter in the town. This time around, he decided against camping in the woods and instead opted for a lodging house for a more comfortable stay. As Pride explored the town further, he confirmed that it was indeed a small community where the residents were tightly knit. It appeared that aside from this central settlement, there were no other major population centers on Kosia Island. Pride had been on Kosia Island for almost 10 days since his arrival. He decided to stay for an extended period since there were no other ships departing from the island's shores at the moment. During his stay on Kosia Island, Pride dedicated most of his time to practice. Every morning, he would venture towards the hills and train his swordsmanship, devil fruit abilities, and hockey in solitude and tranquility. Pride's rigorous training regimen occupied most of his time, and he typically wouldn't return until the late afternoon. As Pride made his way back to his shelter, he was suddenly taken aback by something completely unexpected. As Pride made his way down the hill, he noticed two ships in the distance approaching the island. Although he couldn't discern their origin, he hoped that one of them would be a merchant ship so that he could finally leave the island. On the other hand, they could also be pirate or marine ships, which would present a more concerning situation. In the case of pirates, they may be there to pillage or commit other criminal acts. While there were some rare cases of pirates, such as the Roger pirates, who acted for the sake of adventure and freedom, most were motivated by greed and violence. As for the Marines, Pride couldn't be sure of their intentions, but it was possible they were here to apprehend any pirates or other criminals in the area. In the event that it was a marine ship, Pride would have reason to be concerned. The Marines were known to be diligent in their pursuit of criminals, and if they were searching for someone on Kosia Island, they would likely conduct a thorough search of the area. Despite spending most of his time in the mountains, Pride couldn't be certain if anyone else had entered the island recently. Driven by his inquisitive nature, Pride decided to seek out a better vantage point from which to observe the ongoing proceedings. With his energy somewhat restored from his return journey, Pride decided to head towards the landing spot of the ships instead of immediately retiring to his lodging. Throwback, 7 days ago. Pururu, 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 clack. Admiral Midori speaking. "It's me, Toshiro. May I ask how I can assist you, Fleet Admiral Toshiro?" inquired Midori from the other line. I have received information about the whereabouts of the pirate who was responsible for the death of Vice Admiral Tenzimo. If you have already been briefed on the individual's description and other relevant reports, I suggest you make your way to Kozia Island as soon as possible. It's highly likely that the pirate is currently there, Fleet Admiral Toshiro said. I anticipated that you would receive information on the pirate's whereabouts soon, which is why I've already set sail towards the East Blue. If all goes well, I should arrive at Kozia Island in approximately 7 days, replied Midori, acknowledging Fleet Admiral Toshiro's update. Fleet Admiral Toshiro requested, "Please make every effort to bring the pirate back alive if it's possible for you to do so." "Consider it done," replied Midori in a confident and assuring tone. Clack, back to the present. As Pride drew closer to the ship's landing location, he was able to spot 2 marine vessels with relative ease. Pride wondered to himself, who could they be here for? As he observed the 2 marine ships from a distance. With great concentration, Pride was able to detect the presence of 2 individuals on one of the marine ships, one of them incredibly strong, and the other one slightly stronger. To avoid being seen, Pride concealed himself and positioned himself at a safe distance to observe the ongoing events. The individual on the marine ship soon became aware of Pride's presence, detecting that someone was positioned far to the right, possibly hiding. However, he quickly ascertained that Pride didn't pose any threat, and consequently chose not to pay any further attention to him. There was no time to dwell on Pride's presence, as the person whom the Marines had been searching for was approaching them of his own volition. Using his observation haki, the individual in question was able to sense the presence of a powerful entity, and as a result, he too headed toward the location of the Marine ships. Step, step. In response, all of the Marine crew members jumped off their ship and landed on a nearby grassy plain, with all eyes fixed on the individual who was advancing towards them. Without any further delay, the Marines moved forward to confront the approaching individual. A total of 50 Marine soldiers were present, including 1 admiral, 1 rear admiral, and 48 regular personnel. However, in this era of great turmoil and unpredictability, what exactly constituted ordinary was open to interpretation. The 2 sides eventually came to a stop, with a mere distance of approximately 70 meters separating them. Pride, who was observing the scene from afar, was completely taken aback by what he saw. The individual he saw before him triggered a flood of memories, reminding him of only one particular person. The person in question had long, dark red hair that was a chaotic mess, with curls that twisted in all directions, creating an unruly mass of hair behind his head. In addition, he was dressed in a black coat that draped over his shoulders, leaving his sculpted physique exposed. Despite the numerous scars that marked his skin, he exuded an air of confidence and strength. His attire was completed with a pair of gray, long trousers, to which he affixed his trusty sword. If my assumption is correct, and I have no doubt that it is, the question that lingers in my mind is, why on earth is Xebec present here in the East Blue? I must have been quite fortunate. While I have never personally met him, multiple forums have indicated that he is not a particularly amicable individual. Of course, I cannot make any judgments without first-hand experience. Nonetheless, from what I have read, he is a man with aspirations of world domination and no sense of camaraderie among his crew, only a survival of the fittest mentality. It is natural to perceive him as someone who takes lives without any remorse. It is quite possible that I may have encountered him before, and given his reputation and ruthless nature, he could have posed a significant threat to me. It is fortunate that I did not cross paths with him or come to any harm. As both individuals locked eyes, the person in question tilted his head to the left and flashed a wide grin. Damn it! I had a feeling he would locate me. Wait, is that an admiral standing across from him? Unfortunately, I am not privy to any information regarding the uppermost ranks of the Marine hierarchy. Admiral Midori scrutinized the man's features, and based on the descriptions he had received, he could deduce that he had found his target. In response, his voice reverberated through the air. Who are you and what motivated you to take the life of a vice admiral? Admiral Midori asked, his voice tinged with authority. I am Rox D. Xebec, XHHA. And what vice admiral are you referring to? Xebec boomed with confidence, his voice filled with arrogance. Xebec then resumed his hearty laughter, displaying his amusement at the situation. XHHH, now I recall which vice admiral you are referring to. He was quite a bothersome fellow and wouldn't stop yammering. Xebec remarked with a hint of disdain. The Admiral's temper flared at Xebec's disrespectful reply, and he raised his index finger. In an instant, the Admiral released a powerful shurgon from his index finger, aimed directly at Xebec. Xebec, displaying his immense confidence and arrogance, did not even make an attempt to dodge the attack and allowed the shurgon to strike him in the upper body. To the surprise of the Admiral, the spot where the shurgon struck Xebec's body remained unharmed, even without the use of armament coating. Observing this unexpected outcome, the Admiral raised an eyebrow and asked Xebec another question. "Why did you come towards us instead of trying to escape?" Midori inquired, perplexed by Xebec's lack of concern for his own safety. Xebec responded with his trademark laughter. "Xhhe, I sensed you from afar and running away is not my style. Besides, it would take more manpower to defeat me," he explained with confidence. Pride, who was observing the proceedings from a remote position, couldn't help but think that Xebec was a complete maniac, at least based on his remarks. Xebec's broad grin remained fixed on his face as he made his way towards the Marines with a leisurely pace. The Marines were clearly tense, as it is widely recognized that admirals are among the most formidable and impressive individuals far and wide. The individual in question seemed unfazed by the overwhelming odds against him, as he boldly strode toward the Marines despite the presence of an admiral and a group of 49 other individuals on their side. Rather than attempting to flee, he appeared to be intentionally closing in on them. Step, step. Xebec's face was lit up with a wide grin as he confidently marched towards the Marines. Following his advance, his voice reverberated throughout the entire area. "I have no interest in small fries, but you, on the other hand, should provide me with adequate entertainment, xhhh." In response, his eyes temporarily lost their dark color and were consumed by a crimson hue, intensifying the already tense atmosphere.
Boom.
Suddenly, a scarlet sphere erupted from his body. The skies began to take on a dark and ominous glow, shrouded in nothing but foreboding clouds that occasionally illuminated with bolts of lightning flashing down, intensifying the already tense ambience. The ground in his immediate vicinity began to crumble with every step he took, adding to the growing sense of danger and unpredictability emanating from Xebec. Without warning, a fierce blast of stormy winds swept through the area, uprooting trees in its immediate vicinity and sending them flying through the air until they eventually re-emerged elsewhere. The sheer force of the winds was so powerful that it left the surrounding area in a state of chaos and destruction. The intense winds were so strong that even the Marine ship in the far distance sustained minor damage, with noticeable cracks appearing along its hull. Thud, thud. As Xebec retracted the scarlet sphere, the only sound that could be heard was the impact of the Marine soldiers falling to the ground, all rendered unconscious by the sheer force of his attack. The aftermath was a deafening silence, broken only by the occasional rustle of the leaves in the wind. Out of the 50 Marine soldiers, only 2 were left standing, Admiral Midori and the Rear Admiral. If one were to focus their observation hockey on the entire island, it would be evident that aside from Xebec, Midori, the Rear Admiral, and Pride, no one was left standing. Everyone throughout the whole island had been rendered unconscious by the sheer force of Xebec's conqueror's hockey. Furthermore, the town in which the inhabitants were located was situated quite a distance away. As he observed the incident from afar, Pride too was affected by the impact of the blast. He was confronted with strong wind gusts and the oppressive aura emanating from Xebec, but he was able to fend them off with his own formidable aura. Despite being far away from the scene of the attack, Pride was still able to sense the overwhelming power of Xebec's conqueror's hockey and the destruction it had caused. Pride was in awe of the monstrous power of Xebec's conqueror's hockey. He couldn't believe what he had just witnessed. Judging from Xebec's appearance, he appeared to be 3 to 4 years older than Roger, who was known to possess a powerful conqueror's hockey of his own. Pride could only speculate that Xebec's hockey was even stronger than Roger's, which was a terrifying thought. "Indeed, your conqueror's hockey is truly impressive. But that does not change the fact that you are a threat that must be eliminated." Admiral Midori spoke, his tone more serious now. He knew that they were facing a dangerous opponent, and he needed to remain focused if they were to have any hope of stopping Xebec. "Tainaki, stay back. This is a battle you cannot handle," the Admiral said to his subordinate. The Rear Admiral quickly moved out of the immediate area, leaving only Midori and Xebec facing each other. "Let's take the fight to somewhere else. I don't want the unconscious ones to suffer." "Xhha, as you wish."
Boom.
They both swiftly moved to a location approximately 1 kilometer further east, covering the distance with tremendous speed. Pride was unable to detect any signs of the impending battle, as the combatants had moved far out of his line of sight. However, his curiosity got the better of him, and he cautiously approached from a safe distance, ensuring he would not be caught in the crossfire. After arriving at their new location, the Admiral wasted no time and drew his sword, a weapon of immense power that was likely one of the 21 great grade swords. Xebec's attention was drawn to the impressive sword wielded by Midori, and he acknowledged its quality before challenging his worthiness of it. In a swift movement, he unsheathed his own sword, a weapon that held legendary status among swordsmen, said to be one of the esteemed 12 supreme grades. The moment Midori laid eyes upon the sword, he was immediately struck by a sense of its extraordinary power. The sword's aura was unmistakable, emanating a potent energy that seemed to permeate the very air around it. Midori cast a quick glance at Xebec before making a fluid motion with the sword gripped tightly in his right hand. With a sweeping motion from right to left, he unleashed a devastating burst of energy that tore through the air, its sheer power evident in the way it spanned an impressive distance of 30 meters before colliding with Xebec's position. XHH. That's it. Just like that. That's what I was expecting, exclaimed Xebec, mirroring Midori's earlier motion with a powerful slash of his own that matched the intensity and scope of Midori's attack. As the two attacks collided, a deafening explosion shook the ground beneath them. The sheer force of the impact was overwhelming, obliterating everything within a 50-meter radius and leaving behind a massive crater in the earth. The blast wave rippled outward, sending debris and dust flying in all directions as the two combatants stood their ground, locked in a fierce struggle.
Asterisk boom asterisk. Asterisk boom asterisk.
From an objective standpoint, it would be easy to mistake Midori and Xebec's lightning-fast movements for teleportation. Their agility and speed were nothing short of astounding, their bodies blurring into a frenzied dance of swordplay and energy blasts. To the untrained eye, it was an almost surreal display, a dazzling exhibition of power and finesse that left onlookers mesmerized. It was common knowledge that the Admiral relied on Soru, a technique that increased his acceleration, to achieve his incredible speed. However, in the case of Xebec, the source of his incredible swiftness remained a mystery. It was unclear whether his speed was the result of his own immense strength or some other unknown technique, adding to the enigma and danger that surrounded him. Every few seconds, Midori and Xebec clashed once more, exchanging powerful blows that shook the very ground beneath them. With each new strike, the surrounding landscape was further devastated, trees and rocks alike splintering and shattering under the immense force of their attacks. The air was filled with the deafening sound of their swords meeting, and the ground beneath their feet was churned up and torn apart as they battled on with unrelenting ferocity. The exchange of blows between Midori and Xebec had been going on for over 15 minutes, a seemingly endless flurry of swordplay and energy blasts that showed no signs of abating. The landscape around them was now unrecognizable, reduced to a barren wasteland of churned-up earth and debris, and the two combatants showed no signs of fatigue or hesitation. XHH, no more games, declared Xebec, his voice low and dangerous as he imbued his sword with armament hockey. As he did so, a black aura began to radiate from his weapon, its power palpable in the air around him. The tension between the two combatants reached its peak as Xebec prepared to make his move, his eyes fixed on Midori with a cold, unwavering gaze. Xebec proceeded to execute another swift and precise sword strike. The ensuing assault was engulfed in a cloak of impenetrable darkness.
Asterisk boom asterisk.
With his keen observations hockey, Midori was able to detect the imminent danger and swiftly evaded Xebec's attack. Boom! Once more, a resounding detonation filled the air as Xebec released a formidable slash that spanned an impressive distance of almost 50 meters. Nonetheless, Admiral Midori was not only concerned about the sheer power of Xebec's attack, but also its ominous ability to obliterate anything that came into contact with it, leaving no trace behind as if it never existed. The trees that stood behind them were not merely cut, but rather completely erased from existence by Xebec's seemingly ordinary slash. From a distance, Midori locked his gaze onto Xebec's eyes with an intense focus. "Are you a devil fruit user? Zahai-che. You have guessed correctly, Admiral Midori, and now you shall meet your demise," Xebec proclaimed with a sinister laughter. With those words, Xebec launched himself toward the Admiral with incredible momentum, closing the distance between them in an instant.
Asterisk boom asterisk. Asterisk boom asterisk.
As the fierce battle raged on, both Xebec and Admiral Midori exchanged strike after strike, with each sword coated in armament hockey, increasing the force and destructive power of their attacks. It seemed that Xebec was not yet satisfied with his opponent's performance as an admiral, and thus chose not to utilize his devil fruit powers for the time being, opting instead to prolong the battle and continue to toy with Midori. In this round of combat, they clashed without making physical contact, employing the most advanced form of armament hockey emission. As the battle intensified, vast swaths of the forest were disappearing, leaving behind enormous craters and devastated landscapes. Both combatants were moving within an extensive radius, causing an immense amount of terrain to be devastated in the wake of their battle. As the battle continued, Admiral Midori grew cautious and began to avoid direct confrontations with Xebec, particularly when he noticed the ominous black aura surrounding his sword, indicating the potential use of his devil fruit powers. Midori decided to take a moment to assess the situation more closely and consider his next moves carefully. Pride, who had been forced to dodge some of the powerful blasts aimed at him, came to the realization that Xebec was indeed a devil fruit user. After more than 30 minutes of intense battle, Pride was able to make an educated guess as to the nature of Xebec's devil fruit powers. Pride suddenly realized that he had seen this particular devil fruit before in the anime, but had never fully understood its true potential until now. The key to success in combat was not simply having a strong or weak devil fruit power, but rather how skillfully it was wielded by the user. As Pride reflected on the situation, he came to the realization that the devil fruit being used by Xebec was likely the same one he had seen in the Wano Kuni arc, the Juku no Mi Paramecia fruit. However, while Shinobu had not utilized the power to its full potential, Xebec seemed to have mastered it, making it one of the most powerful devil fruits he had encountered. Pride also speculated that the world government may have searched for the Juku no Mi but failed to locate it due to Shinobu's residence in Wano Kuni, and he doubted that the world government would have connected Shinobu's devil fruit with Xebec's, given how poorly Shinobu had utilized it. As Pride watched on, the battle between Admiral Midori and Xebec was reaching its peak. Juku no Mi. The Juku no Mi is a Paramecia-type devil fruit that allows the user to mature and decay anything they touch. It was eaten by Shinobu,